Anna's going to open it.
Okay. The meeting will now come to order. A notice is hereby given that a special town meeting of the electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of Guilford, Connecticut will be held at the Selectmen's Meeting Room at Guilford Town Hall, 31 Park Street, Guilford, Connecticut, on Monday, October 21st, 2019, at 8:15 a.m. to consider and act on the following items. First item, in accordance with Section 7-7 of the Guilford Town Charter, to consider and act on the recommendations of the Board of Selectmen to enter into a pedestrian easement access agreement, with Whitfield and Water Shops, LLC, owner of property known as 51 Whitfield Street, which easement will permit pedestrian access from a portion of St. George's Church parking lot across 51 Whitfield Street to the Water Street parking lot and adjoining businesses, all as more fully described in the easement agreement. The easement agreement is proposed in conjunction with a revocable parking license granted to the town from the church, which permits parking in a designated area of the church property for tenants and employees of business owners who currently use the Water Street parking lot, all as more fully described in the revocable parking license. Second item, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 47-42C and Town Charter 7-7, to consider and act on acquiring a conservation easement for 135 Old Quarry Road, Assessor's Map 6, Lot 6B. Nominations are now in order for moderator.
I would move to nominate Matt Hoy as moderator.
Second.
Are there any further nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Do I get that? Just kidding. Just kidding. Thank you. As a little way of background on the first item, this has been a long-standing, or a long underway project, and I want to thank Brian McGlone and Ted Sands for their diligence and patience in making this happen. I think we first reached out to Father Stephen about a year and a half ago, maybe year and a half ago. And now that we've cleared all the hurdles, this is the last hurdle to actually putting the agreement in place to allow for parking in the St. George church parking lot behind the church by employees of our downtown merchants. The Economic Development Commission has been working on this project. They had originally surveyed the merchants in town and determined that availability for customer parking was at a premium, in large measure because of the number of employees that need to park in some proximity to the stores. And I think the number was among the merchants around the Whitfield, 146 and Boston Street area, there was some 110 employees, which could significantly impair the ability of shoppers. So we've successfully entered into an agreement with St. George Church, and this is the last hurdle. This is an easement between the driveway on the south side of the St. George property, or to the left as you look at St. George, alongside the establishment known as Hair of the Dog Grooming Salon. And I also want to thank Todd Taylor, who's the owner of 51 Whitfield Street, for working to make this easement happen as well. We will be putting in a sidewalk as per the conditions of our agreement with St. George. It's about a 20-foot section of sidewalk to connect to an existing sidewalk in front of Hair of the Dog, and then entering onto St. George driveway. So that's in part and parcel, and we need the easement in order to facilitate pedestrians going across that particular stretch of land. So, are there any? Now, this is a town meeting, so does anybody have any questions or comments about the easement before we act on it? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to act on the first resolution, and that is that the town of Guilford accept the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Planning and Zoning Commission to enter into a pedestrian access agreement with Whitfield and Water Shops LLC with respect to property known as 51 Whitfield Street, Guilford, Connecticut, to provide pedestrian access between a portion of St. George's Church parking lot and the Water Street parking lot and adjoining businesses. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yep. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. I'll take a vote. All in favor of resolution? All registered voters in favor of resolution? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Item 2, and this is the acquisition of a conservation easement for 135 Old Quarry Road, Assessors Map 6, Lot B, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 47-42C and Town Charter 7-7. Kevin McGee is going to give us a brief explanation of what we're doing here.
So we have, as part of a subdivision application, or actually approval from planning and zoning, this has been approved by planning and zoning, and also recommended by land acquisition, conservation commission also. We are, as part of the subdivision, approved last Wednesday's meeting. It's 15,000, approximately 15,000 square feet of land at the tip of Nero's Island, the west side. Looking to be dedicated as a conservation easement to the town of Guilford. The easement will follow our standard town conservation easement language. It's a area of conservation easement. It does not provide public access. It just provides land restrictions on the property for which property owners cannot do certain things on the property. So it pretty much maintains it in its natural state that it is currently in today.
Good. Anybody have any questions from the audience as well as the board?
So when you say it maintains it in its natural state, let's say there's a storm event and there's, 24 trees go down, who's responsible to take care of that sort of circumstance?
That's to cut them up, would be the property owner who maintains all those rights there. Replanting, there's nothing really subject for them to install. If they want to, they have the right to place them back in there through agreement. But if they do fall down, it's the property owner's property there.
Okay.
Anything further? Any questions? Is there a motion that the town acquire a conservation easement for 135 Old Quarry Road, Assessors Map 6, Lot 6B, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 47-42C and Town Charter 7-7?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any further questions or comments? Once again, everyone's entitled. Every registered voter is entitled to vote. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none. Motion carries. Being that there is no further business to conduct for the special meeting, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Good. I'm gonna get mine. I'm actually charging the next.
You're charging? Okay, good. Good morning, and I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, October 21st, 2019 to order. As is our tradition, Charlie, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 3, and that's to approve minutes. The minutes of the October 7th, 2019 regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
And a second.
Second.
Comments, questions, additions, changes? I had none.
A couple small typos in section 4.1, third paragraph down. It says Lisa, I went over some of the, I think that should be data, went over some of the data,
Yeah.
which show good news, and then the next sentence starts should be the percentage of kids recognizing.
Good. Good catch. Anything else?
No, but I did have a comment which is addressed in one of our subsequent items down further in that same area. Oh, no, excuse me, in section 8 regarding the vaping policy. Everybody did comment on the fact it was an employee-only policy. Obviously, we got a revised document that focuses in a little bit more, so.
Anything else? If not, call the question on the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Item 4, Finance Director, Mary Jane. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Wonderful. Four dot one, monthly
Okay.
report.
All right, so we can start with revenues, I guess.
Yeah.
Overall, our revenues are at our average collection rate as to where we are this year. Last year, in fiscal 17, we were at 51.8%, so last year's percentage is the anomaly as opposed to where we are today. Tax collection, as usual, is driving that percentage. So last year, the tax collection at this point had not all been caught up in munis, which brought that percentage down. Otherwise, unless anyone has any particular questions on any line items.
I don't. Nope.
Okay, same story with expenditures. Pretty much where we are right now, where we expect to be for expenditures as well. I don't really have anything spectacular to say one way or the other. So unless anybody has some questions.
There's nothing unusual that caught my eye.
Yeah,
Yep.
there was nothing that I thought I needed to bring to your attention.
And even though this is only 3 months into the calendar
Early in the
year,
cycle.
there's not much of a trend that we
Right.
need to be concerned about.
Right,
Okay,
correct.
Good. All right. Warrants? Any questions on warrants? No? Capital, either the capital funds, medical?
So on the medical, you'll see that the September claims are higher and have been brought up to date since August was low, and I anticipated a higher month in September, so you'll see that here. We are starting to get some claims in, reaching our $75,000 threshold, where we start to accumulate our catastrophic claims, but we don't have any yet that have reached the 150
150.
level
Okay.
at this point. So,
The September number, do you think that has caught up all of the shortfall that was missing from the July, August?
it's hard to know, but it is a significant amount of it, yeah.
Okay, well, that brings our trend, our monthly trend lower, if you, it
Yeah, if you remember, last year we trended lower as well,
did
so.
start, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We tend to trend lower, especially in the beginning, because people are using their own HSA funds.
Mhm.
And until they meet their deductibles, the town's policy does not kick in until then.
So it's fair to add August and September together,
Correct.
blend them.
Yes.
But even if you add July, August, and September, year over year, we're down
Yeah.
300,000. So
Yeah.
that's good news. Good news for the health of our employees as well as our financial coffers. Good. Anything else? No. Good. Thank you. I'm sure we'll get a few other questions this evening. At the Board
Yeah,
of
second
Fin- at the
chance.
Board
I'm
of
prepared
Finance
for
meeting.
those.
Good. All right, 4.2, consider and take possible action on resolution to close out capital projects.
So as you have heard me talk about in the past, we did have our bond, we did bond to close out everything in our Fund 214, which are some old Board of Ed, mostly Board of Ed projects. And part of the bond project, part of the bond package that we put together were taxable bonds that covered the difference needed in all of these old funds. So the first resolution deauthorizes any remaining balance left on the bonds for those listings. So I did provide you a copy directly out of our official statement that shows where those numbers come from. So anything left that we haven't bonded for in those particular projects, we were looking to deauthorize. I will say that just because we're deauthorizing, $1.1 million in one particular one, doesn't mean that that project wasn't complete. It just, we're looking at them all as a whole. Other projects may have brought in bonding money more than they needed, and it's adjusting to this. So I don't want to look like that the projects weren't done. All the projects in this list were completed as proposed at town meeting.
Well, that is the one that does jump out. I mean, that it's that, how much was do you know how much the original bond was?
It's
On
listed
the next
below,
page.
next
It's listed,
page.
yeah, the original bond for, that project was almost 2.6 million. We,
6 million.
yeah, then,
And so we spent 2/3 of it?
well, if we finish this, the next one I have, let me get out of this one. If you look on the next item 3, the next item shows what we authorized and what we expended. So the 2.6, and if you go to the next, if you're at the next item, the second page, the color. So the next item, we talk about actual expenditures. Here we're talking just bond authorization. So if you're looking at, whoops,
Oh, I see.
Oh, I see it, the capital.
a page that looks like this
Yep.
with the colors.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look at that same project, the 2.6, we actually spent 2.3, almost 2.4. We brought in revenue, so it was underfunded, budgetarily underfunded
Oh.
through the bonding. So
I'm even more confused.
So the spending authorization doesn't account for any incoming money?
No.
right, Basically?
no, so what happened was we didn't bond for the entire project. We didn't bond for all of it.
We didn't need the fund.
Because we had funds in other projects.
That
There was-
were
Yeah.
sufficiently descriptive of this project.
Correct.
Okay, so, okay.
Right, so we don't bond, we didn't want to bond for all of this, for this $600,000 difference that shows here, because we already had other funds that were bonded that weren't used.
Okay.
So the
So
previous school roof projects, the money was sufficiently authorized?
we're looking at all of these particular projects. All of these projects together constitute our Fund 214. Just like the other capital projects, we have 216, 217, this was 214. So we don't need to bond. What you're doing today is kind of reallocating all of the money to show that we bonded more than we needed for one item and less for this particular item.
And the authorizations in those original bonds, the language was
Was
broad
broad
enough to
enough.
do what you're.
Yep.
Yeah,
About to
that's
vote.
the rub there.
Absolutely, yes, but it's not that we use the money for something else, it's just an accounting function. We went to the bond market anticipating funding a particular project that didn't use all that money, and so the money is now being used for something else. The bonding money is in, we're just reallocating it to a different project. Not that we've used that authorization for a different purpose.
Right.
It's similar to when we do our budgets. So, we have the health department budget and they overexpend in training and underexpend in supplies. It's the same,
Yeah,
the
and
same
I
thing.
remember this came up in the Board of Finance many years ago, and there seemed like there was a lot of open bonding authorizations.
I'm
And
working
there was
to-
an effort to close those out,
Yes.
which is what's happening.
Correct, that's what
Okay, so
that's
it's
what
not
I'm
like,
working on.
somebody in 5 years can say, oh, good, look, here's $500,000 hanging in some bond, where are we gonna spend it?
Correct,
So this is to avoid that issue, this is to tighten up the
correct.
open
These will,
accounts.
deauthorizing the rest of this bond means that we can't touch these projects anymore. These are gonna be closed out and done.
Good, work is done, everything's where it should be, a
Correct.
little excess
Correct.
authorization.
Right, we're
Cadence.
talking about the authorization, right. So, that's why I said, some are over-authorized, some are under-authorized, but
On the whole-
the net effect is what we're closing out.
Right. And it's appropriate, Lou, as you mentioned, that was a pet peeve of some of us on the Board of Finance for a couple of years. These are bond authorizations that date back to 2005, 2006, 2008. The most recent one would have been the roof replacement at Lakes, which was 2010, 2011. So, in all honesty, if we haven't expended those funds at this point, it's time to close the authorization, so.
Right, and we really shouldn't be spending these funds at this point, so late in the game. And you will see, I will be making a conscious effort to deauthorize grants on a bonds on a regular
Good.
basis.
So we don't have to
We won't be doing this.
in this position again.
Great.
Great.
All right. All right, is there a motion on the resolution that has been presented to us in writing rather than me read the entire thing?
So moved.
Second.
Call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. 4.3, discuss and take possible action to transfer $1,369.41 from FY 10-11 bond, Board of Ed bond authorization to fiscal year 12-13 bond authorization.
Right. So as I noted, we did go out and get a bond authorization this year to close out all of these projects. When we bond, it's in round numbers. So when we rounded up to the number we needed, it left $1,369.41 left in this fund. Since the majority of the items in this fund are Board of Ed related, it is appropriate, after speaking with our bond counsel, to transfer this revenue, this excess revenue in the entire Fund 214 into the other bond authorization for the school. So it will, this money will be revenue into that bond authorization.
Got it.
So
All
it closes out, the fund balances out to
Yep,
zero,
sure.
we closed it out, it's no
We're
longer
done.
on our books.
Good. All right, is there a motion to transfer the $1,369.41 from FY 10-11 Board of Ed bond authorization account 21-432-57-600 to fiscal year 12-13 Board of Ed bond authorization account number 21-647-57-909?
So moved.
Yeah, and I'll second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fire chief, fire chief. While Charlie is coming up, I just want to extend my thanks to Chief Hershaft. We had a couple of pockets of outages with Eversource last week, even though the community as a whole was not significantly damaged, but Charlie was at a play, I think, on Friday night, and was responding to me on some requests, and was paying attention to my interactions with Eversource, and he reached out directly to his contacts at Eversource, and there are 4 residents on Talia Ridge who owe you a debt of appreciation. So, thank you, Charlie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the 5-year project we're finishing with replacing all the hose in the fire department with new hose. So this is the 5th and final phase of large purchases of hose. This is the same vendor we've been using for the last 5 years. They are the sole source vendor for the hose. They give us the best warranty and the operating pressures that we need to operate at. So the total amount is $14,390,000 to shipment fire equipment.
Quick question, Charlie, just the average life of some of these
These are
hoses?
warranty for 10 years.
10 years.
Right.
Good. Anything? Any questions? Any other questions? No? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Number 6, Public Works Director, Tom Fillion. Discuss and take possible action on the purchase of plow blades from Construction Materials Incorporated. Tom?
How you doing?
Good.
Morning.
All right, we're looking to buy 66 of the 3/4 inch by 8 by 11 plow edges. This is not a common, most of the time, like the state and everybody uses 5/8. We use 3/4. All right, Construction Materials gave us a price of $183.29 per blade.
Yep.
The best at the state, which splits their blades, but the best price with the state was $186.40. So we're saving $3.11 per blade.
Beautiful.
And the reason why Construction Materials can do that is because they take in bulk shipments, and it's when you get charged with the weight,
Yeah.
you know, as far as delivery like that, so this is why they can be competitive. and the price was $12,097.14.
Okay.
I think it's a great deal, so,
What's the typical lifespan for one of these items?
within the year, we bought
1
them
year,
out,
pretty
yeah.
much?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were able to flip them over, but they're usually, D66 will probably go for this year,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, people don't, I guess, a lot of folks don't really realize it's not the plow, there's an
Right,
item on the
it's
bottom.
that edge,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot less expensive than replacing the whole plow.
Somebody's doing that.
Somebody, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody got smart somewhere, right? All right, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 6.2, consider and take possible action on the purchase of a tag-along asphalt hot box. You wanna, just for everybody's edification, what an
Yeah.
asphalt hot box is?
Okay, asphalt hot box is, it carries the asphalt like we would from the plant, and we can also use this here, this one here will make its own with old asphalt that we can reclaim.
Oh.
So that's why we went with the double burner on this one, because it allows us that. And I have to check into the emulsifier that we would have to use within that. I think I'll look with Brandon Putney
Right.
for that and see what we can come up with. It's a tag along, so it has a dump body on it, so it's a lot better access for our guys. It's a lot less work on that, on their backs as far as the way this thing works out.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is in the wintertime, when we're dealing with, cold patch, which really doesn't hold up much, we'll be able to use regular asphalt hot, and it'll do a lot better job with it.
Good.
And also, we're going with a 3-ton capacity, which will allow us to stay within the 10,000-pound limit. So we can still use, most of my guys, B-class licenses can use it.
Okay, good.
All right, and we would like to purchase that, it probably would be from HB Fairfield.
Yeah.
It's a Falcon asphalt hot box, and from the Sourcewell contract, 052417-SRM, and it's for $39,525.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The drivers of the community, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Definitely.
Item 7, Mitch Goldblatt, remove from table and take possible action on the smoke-free, vape-free workplace policy. Mitch, thanks for, and Pam, thanks for jumping on this over the last couple of weeks to get us something that we can look at again.
Right, so based on your last meeting, I don't know if you need to make a motion to take this off the table, but you did table this
Yeah.
last time. And we took back a number of suggestions and questions that you had about this policy, and have come back to you with a policy. You'll see you have a red line as well as a clean copy to look at. But Pam found the general statutes that you asked for that are now cited right into the ordinance. We did some research of other towns and around the state, and found interestingly that there are some policies that are as old, if not older than ours, that still still on their books, allow for smoking in buildings, which obviously is outlawed. But almost every one we found, in fact, every town we found, I found, does allow for smoking in a designated area or an area outside of buildings. So, and some of them do prohibit smoking within vehicles, some don't mention it. So I think we're, in line with what other communities are doing as far as putting in a strict policy, also making sure there's no smoking in vehicles, and still allowing for smoking outside of buildings, outside of vehicles, and outside of 10 feet of any entranceway of a facility. The other thing that we did is put in some language about, for those that do smoke outside, that they must use receptacles or find a way to dispose properly of any smoking materials. This all goes for smoking and vaping. following the same policy. And finally, the statement of understanding or acknowledgement for employees, I took and made that a separate sheet, because what this will do is this will actually go into our policy manual, replacing the current policy that's there, so that new employees will be signing for the entire personnel manual, and not have to sign separately, but current employees will have to have them sign off that they understand that this is a change to the personnel policy manual that they have already signed for. So that's where we're at. And the other thing that we did, Pam and I discussed your concerns also about visitors and outsiders, and we took that out of the policy and made this strictly an employee policy to take away those concerns. Although, based on state statute, anyone entering the building or buildings, or town, would be not allowed to smoke in the building anyway. So with that, I hope that you will.
In your research,
yeah.
were there any towns that did not allow vaping, smoking, etc., on any town property?
The only exception I found to that, and what I did, and using CCM's assistance and also a couple of the HR directors that I know, we found that in Fairfield, their Park and Recreation Department, strictly the department, allowed no smoking anywhere for any employees. But the town of Fairfield overall does still allow, actually Norwalk, wasn't Fairfield, it was Norwalk, that allows for the smoking designated areas. Yeah, yeah, for rest of all the employees. It was interesting. They had two separate policies there, but I have those backing up a lot of different information that we were able to put together from different towns and communities. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
In section B, the
Yeah.
last paragraph addresses outside areas where space is shared by 2 or more persons. What is that meant to address? That's not the within 10 feet.
No, that's meant to address if you have two people that are actually working together. Let's say we have two people in our Parks Department or our Public Works Department that are outside and are working close by, doing a shared task. That yes, you're outside the building, and yes, you're allowed to smoke as long as the other person you're working with is okay with that. If not, it defers to the non-smoking person. So, if you're doing a task yourself, you're away from everybody else, then it's fine. But if you're within close proximity and doing a task with somebody else, so that was, and we picked that up from another community, which I found was certainly worth pursuing and putting in here and protecting the non-smoker on the outside, or non-vapor.
Good.
On the outside task.
Okay,
Excellent.
good addition.
Great. Any further questions? Is there a motion to remove from the table the smoke-free and vape-free workplace policy?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second. Call question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. On the motion itself, or if we're comfortable with the policy for employees only, as is stated here in the revision, is there a motion?
We don't need to move to amend the motion to add the revised.
The motion is going to be because we never took a motion on it. We didn't have an open motion, we had an open agenda item.
Okay.
We never had an
So
open
this is-
motion.
this is what's before us.
The only question I have for you though at this point is this effective immediately as of today, or is there any kind of time period you want to put in? I'll just leave that to you.
Let's leave it to the expert at the HR. Do you think the efficacy, can we get this word out today? Or?
We get the word out today, we can just, we can make it effective today, we can also give people a little time period to adjust, it's up to you.
Made it effective November 1st, because you've got to collect all these signatures.
Well, signatures are gonna, the policy will go into effect whether I have the signatures or not. I mean, we'll be chasing certain people to get the signatures, I'm sure, as time goes by, but we wanna make the policy effective. I would think, November 1st would be a fair time period to make it, if you wanna do that.
Seems appropriate.
Make that part of the motion, I think that would be great.
Good.
So is there a motion to approve the revised smoke-free and vape-free workplace policy with an effective implementation date of November 1st?
I'll make the motion.
Second. Second. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
here
you.
for one more thing.
Yep. Wait. Amendment number 2.
Second thing is amendment number 2 to the town employees pension plan. Going back a ways, the Milliman, our actuary, found after we had passed our revised pension plan for the town employees, that there were a number of errata that were found, as well as some other things they put together and felt they should be included into the plan. We have looked at that, Matt, Pam, myself, have looked at that and have segregated out those things that are actual non-substantial changes and those that will create some further discussion. So the non-substantial changes are what's before you. This is basically just cleanup corrections that took place in the plan. There's nothing that changes any meaning to the plan at all here. And I've run this by people that are affected by the pension plan, as well as the non-union employees that are affected by the union by this, as well as all the leadership of the different unions, and no one has come back to me with any concerns. This went before the pension committee just last week. Pension committee discussed it and has passed it on to you for approval today with recommendation for approval. That's where we're at.
I will echo Mitch's comments that we had a couple of other items that had been recommended to us by Milliman, which were considered substantive changes. We are currently working with Milliman to understand the financial implications on a couple of those things. And we'll leave it at that for now. But we will be back to you, as well as the pension committee, on a couple of these changes based on best practices. So this is a clean copy from that perspective.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second. Any further discussion or questions? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. I'd like to add agenda item 7A, and I apologize for the late nature of it, but we received the request late Friday. And this is a request from True Blue Environmental, the contractor for the water main project. And it is, they're looking to extend work hours beyond the current allowed. So is there a motion to add it as agenda item 7A?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Janice will talk about it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry about the late addition. This came up on a construction meeting on Friday with the contractor who's looking ahead to do some work is in Tuttle's Point Causeway, which is going to be a bit challenging with the water levels there. And so they were looking out to the calendar to see when they might be able to achieve, low tide work. And they came up with these dates that are before you. It's particularly November 4th. They're going to start early. Beginning time at 6 a.m., which is prior to the noise ordinance restriction of 7 a.m. during the work week. That work should end by the end of the day. And then the other days are looking at November 13th, 14th, and 15th, starting their work activities in the afternoon and going to as late as 10:30, 11:30, or 12:30 a.m. So there would be some disruption to the neighborhood, and we'll get the word out. Specifically to the people in that area to let them know, but technically we would need a waiver of the noise ordinance as well, as the noise ordinance I don't believe allows for even construction activity.
And the noise is specifically trucks and backing up alarms and things like that. I mean, it's no blasting or anything like that.
No, there's no blasting anticipated. There could potentially be hoe ramming if they've come across something they need to hoe ram. We don't expect drilling. There could be tailgate banging from trucks, water pumps running to dewater the hole. So there's some noise.
Okay.
Good. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. I did have one other question.
Sure.
When you alert the neighbors and everything, is there a way for the neighbors to respond? I mean, what if they have issues with it? I mean, is there-
They'll call the selectmen's office as they normally do.
Yeah.
We will do a couple of things. We'll work with the associations, the Tuttle's Point Association and the Mulberry Point Association. The presidents of those associations have been very interactive with our offices and the construction project itself. True Blue, and I've been very impressed with True Blue and the way they work. They've been on Lower Road for a little while now. They go door to door to talk to folks about what's happening.
Yeah, I've gotten good reports myself, so.
So now Tuttle's is sort of, that's a no man's land where they're gonna be working, but they will talk to neighbors around all sides.
we'll
And
get the
we'll
word
post
out.
it, we'll post it as well.
And my point is, I know we can get the word out, but there's a method for people to respond, that type of thing. Everything I've heard, to your point, has been very positive on both sides.
Yeah, the work start is November 4th, which will be the day of your next meeting if something comes up, and we get a lot of, we can certainly report back to you.
Is there, do you know if there's any financial consequence with these kind of hours, shift in hours? Is there gonna be
No,
some overtime?
not from our standpoint. This is means and methods on the contractor, and, he's adjusting his work hours to his benefit of getting the work done in a timely and easier way than it's not written in the contract. They're not gonna come to us for a change order for costs or anything
Not
like
gonna
that.
say, listen, I got guys working overnight or
No.
crew working overnight.
No. No,
Okay.
this is his decision and
Okay.
it's solely just to waive the noise ordinance restrictions for these times.
I just wanted to ask something, I just pulled the noise ordinance, and I don't know why, but it does talk about deep regulations that may have regulations to deal with noise. So that's in our ordinance, it might be just something just to double check.
Yeah, I mean, and my experience has been in the past that a lot of times the noise ordinances actually exclude construction activities. In this case, ours doesn't, so that's why I was bringing this one to you. We could look into Deep's
Yeah.
thing, but.
Be careful on it.
Yeah, with our friends at DEP, you're absolutely right. Okay, any further questions?
No, but should we, make sure that we do verify or check off?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
So do you want to amend the motion to include verification with DEP?
Yes.
Good. All right. And it's been seconded. Good. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Item 8, consider and take possible action on a resolution for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. This is a requirement from the Department of Housing, the Federal Department of Housing through the Connecticut Department of Housing. This is for the Housing Diversion Program. For those who had the opportunity to see it on yesterday's New Haven Register front page above the fold, Guilford has mentioned is a wonderful article about this housing diversion program, and I want to thank this board for having supported our role in being the fiduciary agent to acquire the $350,000 grant, which will go towards putting resources in the shoreline community, or making resources available to the shoreline community to combat housing crises. This money is designed for programs that are diversion related. It's not fuel assistance or rent assistance, but it's to put resources in place so folks can go to individuals who can work the system for them to prevent them from getting to the point where they're homeless. I've made this comment before. On the face of it, Guilford does not have a homeless problem. However, if you go to New Haven and you go to the shelters, you will find shoreline residents who are no longer declare themselves Guilford residents or Madison residents or Branford residents. They are now New Haven residents because they're homeless in those communities because that's where the services are. But I encourage anyone to take a look at the New Haven Register's article for a little more detail on it. And it was yesterday, Sunday's paper. So.
Great.
Anyway, is there a motion to allow the first selectman to enter into the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question.
Sure.
I think we're missing part of the resolution.
Lit
We just
on-
have the first page. Does
page.
it go past item 2?
It feels like there should be signature lines.
Sure, there are signature
Definitely,
lines,
but
yeah.
is there anything in between number
Yeah.
2 and the signature
No, I
lines?
think that was just one page.
One page,
Yeah.
okay.
That was it.
Because it's going to be
It
signed.
needs to be
Signature line
signed,
might
so
be up
there's-
at the
They put
top.
The signature's at the top, yeah.
Normally it's at the bottom, you're right, but
Oh.
they switched it and they put the signature up top for
Oh,
some reason
interesting.
on this, the sample they sent
That's
us.
strange.
I
Okay.
know, yeah.
All right, well, good.
They should have like an end of document
Done,
line.
yes, yeah.
It's confusing that way, but
Yeah.
thank you for the explanation.
All right, is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
I'll second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Item 9, appointments and resignations. 9.1 is to act on the resignation received from Arnold Scretta from the Hazardous Mitigation Commission. Is there a motion to accept with regret and appreciation?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.2, act on resignation received from Susan Anderhagen from the Inland Wetlands Commission. I'll make that motion with regret and appreciation. I actually had an opportunity to talk to Susan and Chris last evening, and they're actually moving to Delaware.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
They've built it once.
Yep, yeah.
Well, that's,
So on 9.2, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, yeah, sure, second.
Second, I made the motion, so second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.3, act on the resignation from Chris Anderhagen from the Standing Building Committee and Building Code of Appeals with regret and appreciation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And second?
I'll just point out,
Yeah.
this is a first for us because it's actually a spousal resignation. It came from, so I hope we don't set a precedent here of people resigning their
Together.
spouses from things.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.4, act on a recommendation to appoint Holly Clune to the Safe Streets Mobility Task Force. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, I request for use of town property. Charlie, you want to make a motion?
Okay, yes, I would make a motion that we approve the use of sign for Little Folks Fair and also for a play for Guilford Theater Arts Group for a play on November 7th and 9th.
Yeah, I would just point out, the Little Folks Fair, I think, is usually green,
Yeah,
Easter Green, I'm sorry.
that's good.
and then a sign for the other folks.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Committee reports? Anything, Sam, on the housing? You want to mention,
We're
Chair?
just reviewing the documents prepared by the special housing attorney that the town has engaged, and we'll be bringing, hopefully, a contract forward for selectmen approval sometime in November.
I think yeah, keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah,
I think we had put it,
November 4th. but
Yeah, November
I-
4th, but we'll see.
George thought that, but I think Pam and I think maybe that won't happen. But it will happen. It just may not happen on the 4th.
So, Sandy, could you just, this is different housing than the other matter we just discussed.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So-
I
That's okay, you didn't do
I
that.
always
just-
feel so
folks are
repetitive, but
watching.
I'll be happy
No,
to
it's
clarify.
helpful.
This is, I'm speaking as chair of the Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee. This is developing more affordable housing for people of all ages in our town, and the town has identified property, part of the property of the Woodruff Road with total property that the town owns for hopefully construction of 16 to 20 units of affordable housing with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. Do you want me to go further, Lou?
No, but I'm
I
just
can
gonna,
keep going.
no, I'm gonna double back and just point out that the Small Cities Grant, in case it wasn't obvious, and it's good to compare these two
Yeah.
together, is to help people in existing housing, to small grants and small loans to keep them going forward.
Right, and this is to provide some subsidy for people who are employed so that they can live and work in Guilford.
But new construction.
New
so-
construction.
Yeah, good, awesome.
Anything else? I don't think we, actually, I'll report for you on the fees.
Okay,
The
do you
building
hear from
fees,
me on
they
that?
went in, no.
Oh,
the,
building fees.
The building fees went into effect, the new building fees went into effect on Friday, October 18th.
Good.
Yep.
Terrific.
Good.
Okay.
No, his cell phone number, wasn't it?
Yeah, perfect.
Right. Item 12, correspondence. 12.1, letter from the Guilford Rotary dated September 16th, 2019 regarding Guilford Fair Parade funding. This is something I had talked to Tom Tarabile about earlier this fall. And what they're requesting is, given the significance of the Guilford Fair, the Rotary has largely taken on the financial responsibility for making sure that happens. And the Rotary is still working with Guilford Savings Bank, the Fair Association, and in terms of funding, but they're looking for us to consider funding some or all of the expenses associated with the Guilford Fair Day Parade. So that's something I think we'll take up during budget season, but if anybody has any comments or questions at this point, we can certainly get back to the committee.
I think when we look at this, and I do believe we should look at it, I think the suggestion from the committee about if the Board of Education can waive the fees that, or the, I don't know what you call them, but the stipends for the bands and the floats, that's about $2,700, I think he said. So in effect, if they did that, then the BOA would be contributing that
In
money
that way,
in
right.
effect,
Right.
and then that if we on the town side contributed something and then looked at it as a total, you know, see what I mean? It would just be a total amount of whatever the amount is.
Right. I would just sort of chime in and say the Fair Committee, or the Parade Committee from Rotary has done a spectacular job.
Yeah.
The parade is very well run. It's bigger than ever. Tireless work. There's a very generous supporter from the town that we all know and has done a tremendous amount of sponsorships over the years that is not contributing what they had in the past. And that was declared at the time that it changed. So that outside sponsorship has sort of come down, but they still have other sponsorships, and they're going to work to continue to get them. So I don't think it's going to, I don't suspect it's going to be 100% finance, and they're looking for other sponsorships, and still have them.
What do the fees for the bands and everything, they go towards the float?
They go towards the bands probably to buy uniforms and instruments for kids who can't afford to do that.
And the other point is the
I can see
schools. The
band.
schools need to pay the school employees who are marching with the bands.
And they rent the
So
truck
that's
in some cases, so
contractual.
you gotta
Yeah.
find somebody to
The
come up with
floats, the 4 floats are $125 each, and then it says each of the 4 school bands get $550
Yeah,
each.
that really-
He didn't elaborate, but I think the things that you're saying are true. Or that's probably what.
I can appreciate if there's costs. I always thought the trucks were donated
They
because
probably
there
are,
ads and
those
stuff
dollars.
like that. But I didn't appreciate that it was a fundraiser per se.
Maybe it's supplies for the themes, because those, there's elaborate.
I don't have a problem with it necessarily, I just,
Yeah.
did not approach it as a fundraiser for the schools and whatnot.
Yeah, I suspect it was probably to defray costs, but the question is where it comes from.
And the town does have additional expense, right? We have
Right.
police
Police
coverage
coverage,
and so
overtime,
on, so. We'll talk about it during budget
During
season.
budget season. Also, 12.2 was correspondence from Steve Spurrell, dated October 16, 2019, where he suggests that as we go into budget preparation time, he'd like to suggest a new entry sign for 400 Church Street. He says he envisions a big chunk of Stony Creek granite similar to that in front of the high school. Charlie, you need a new sign out there for public safety?
Just for everybody, I didn't know, I couldn't figure out what 400 Church Street was, but it's the opening to the public safety complex.
And I will talk to Steve. I haven't had a chance to talk to him since he sent this. I don't know if this was tongue in cheek or it's completely serious. So Knowing Steve, it's serious, though.
Yeah, I suspect he's got that streak of trying to do good,
Right.
which is very helpful
Absolutely.
for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's not forget, Steve was the one who administered the funds for federal employees who were furloughed earlier this
Yes.
year.
Right.
Yes.
So Steve's heart is completely in the right place. 12.3 building report or public works department report. Anything on either of those? Hearing none. Old business? New business? Public forum? Hearing none. We have item 16, which is going to require executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session inviting Chief Hershaft and Mitch Goldblatt and Mary Jane?
It's item
Right?
17 on our agenda, but does that matter?
No.
No, it's,
Okay,
yeah, the board pack that was
okay.
Good. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll be coming back. Which means they're gonna have to memorize. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. We do have one item coming out of executive session, and that is to act on a request for donated sick time for a member of the IAFF. As is customary in executive session, we will not disclose the individual's name, but is there a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
And a
Second.
second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Good.
Thank you all. Not bad, huh? All right, so